Welcome. It is Wednesday, April 8th. I'm Brianna Wright, Executive Director of the American Subcontractors Association Houston chapter. And today, and let's see, we're upgrading our graphics here, so we'll see if this works. Our hot topic discussion is with industry expert Andy Adams, Vice President and General Counsel of Adams Insurance Service. And the discussion today is COVID-19 insurance issues. Andy, there's a lot going on. It's a daily change in what all is happening out there. And I know we're getting some questions about insurance and how COVID-19, job sites, insurance, workers' comp, all of that figures into all of it. So if you are, so here are some of the questions. If my company is on a job site and the job site gets shut down for COVID-19, is insurance? What if it's my employee that shut down that job site with COVID-19? Am I liable? Is there insurance? What about my other employees that may be on a job site that gets shut down because of that? What's out there? What insurance protection is out there? Where's the liability? What do you know?
Brianna, thanks. Sure, let's talk about those things. First, I want to say that those graphics were incredible. I saw your paper homemade graphics on the others, and so onward and upward. We're really knocking out of the park here. So to your first question, and liability, and so without kind of getting into the insurance gobbledygook and going full insurance nerd, the way to break that down is you buy a general liability policy for to cover you if someone claims that you damaged them. They're a third party. They claim that you did something wrong that damaged them. And so in the example that you gave, which actually I just heard this example today. Let's say that construction, thank goodness, is considered an essential service right now. Job sites are continuing, they are working. But let's say that one of your employees, in spite of all the safety measures that you've done, ends up becoming ill at the job site and tests positive for COVID-19. And as a result, the job site gets shut down. They know who the employee was. They know the contractor. Are you going to get blamed for that? Could they claim that that's your fault and any costs associated with that shutdown that you're going to be responsible for? And I think the answer is sure, that's entirely possible. I could see somebody, an enterprising attorney, I know they're out there, but I could see somebody making that allegation and saying, hey, you guys didn't do a good enough job screening this employee. You should have known, and you let them get on the job site. So that brings to the second question as to whether or not you have insurance coverage for that case. And I think there's a little bit of good news there because the standard general liability policy, and again, every policy is different. I got to stress that. But the standard general liability policy will respond to that. Doesn't exclude a illness or your responsibility if an illness or virus comes onto the job site. So there could be some coverage for that, defense costs associated with that. You definitely could have that under your standard GL policy.
Okay.
The other thing that you mentioned, Brianna, is with that issue, and it's a question that we're getting a lot, is okay, our job sites aren't shut down at this point, and hopefully they never will be. But if that does happen, do we have insurance for that? And that's a different insurance question, right? So the first one was someone's telling me that I'm responsible for that. This one now is, hey, I can't get access to my job site. That means my workers can't work and no one's going to pay me for if the work's not done, right? So is there insurance coverage for that? And that I don't have a good answer on. The short answer is probably not. Typically, that sort of claim would be what's called a business interruption claim or business interruption loss. And normally you get that kind of coverage when you buy a property insurance policy. At a job site, that would be what's called a builder's risk policy, which typically that's the GC and the owner who have that responsibility. But just to give an easy example, the reason that you would have a policy like that is say like a fire shuts down your office, okay, or shuts down the job site. That's going to put you out of work for a certain period of time. And you may incur additional costs over that time just to kind of maintain your operations and maintain your business. And that's what that insurance is designed to cover. Now, how is that any different with a COVID-19 shutdown? And you know, again, I want to avoid the insurance nerd for the purposes of our talk here, but most property policies, this is not like the GL. Most property policies have exclusions for viruses. These are fairly common. They've been around since the days of the bird flu or the avian flu, which was several years back. But even if you didn't have that exclusion, you'd still have problems triggering that coverage because those, and I said I wasn't going to go all insurance nerd, and I feel like that I'm heading that direction, but let me finish the thought. So
way too late already, way too late.
Sorry. But you're those policies typically require some kind of direct damage, okay? So at the fire, that's an easy example, right? So the building burned up. In this case, you could argue that, hey, I've got a contaminated office building or a contaminated job site with COVID-19. Well, but how long is that going to take you to clean? Odds are you can get a cleaning crew out there that's going to clean that up and clean the job site, disinfect everything in your office in 48 hours, 72 hours. Most business interruption coverages have a time-based deductible that says, hey, we're not paying anything until after 72 hours have elapsed. And they will not cover that 14-day quarantine period because there's no damaged work site there. Okay, it's just you're just having to stay out of it. So unfortunately, in that scenario, I don't think there's going to be any coverage. Again, should we get there where they start shutting job sites down en masse?
Okay. What about workers' compensation carriers? Excluding or allowing for exclusions of either furloughed or workers who are under a COVID quarantine from their payroll. Right. Is that a thing that's going on right now?
Yeah, so workers' comp is another piece of this, right? And we get a lot of questions about that. First, the bad news. Most COVID-19 cases, especially if it's going to come from a construction worker, are not going to be covered by comp. The comp typically requires, it will cover an occupational illness, but the occupation illness needs to be peculiar to that particular operation or occupation, excuse me, which COVID-19 is not peculiar in any way to construction. For example, like a nurse in a hospital, now that could be a compensable injury. But regardless of that, what you're talking about is something that's come up. So if you've got workers who can't work at a job site, okay, but you're continuing to pay them, or you've had to furlough employees and you're continuing to pay, is that something that you're going to have to continue paying workers' comp premium on while they're just sitting at home and not working? And that's a question that we're getting. And Texas Mutual is a Texas-based workers' compensation carrier. They insure a lot of contractors in the ASA. And what they have said is that for those workers that are furloughed at home or are not working due to a COVID quarantine or something like that, if you're paying them, you do not have to include that in your payroll. And so that's going to exempt them from their payroll. Now, you need to keep records and be able to prove that. But that's something that Texas Mutual has done really unprompted. Now, other insurance carriers, they have not made that move yet. I think they're waiting for the National Insurance NCCI to come out with some recommendations in that regard. So it's possible they might. But if you're a Texas Mutual customer, that's definitely something you should look at if you have employees that are either furloughed or off-site due to a quarantine.
That's really good information to have. What is there anything else that you're hearing from your clients, probably more so construction related, insurances that they questioned or insurances that they now wish they would have purchased?
Oh, yeah. So this is kind of depressing, but totally unrelated to construction. This applies to everybody across the board, but we're seeing an uptick in cybercrime and theft. And if you think about it, it makes sense. People are having to make all kinds of accommodations and changes to the way that they normally do business and their regular procedures. They're working from home. They've got laptops. They may not be used to those laptops. Just a case in point, I had to call Dell to buy a laptop for a new employee that's starting in late April, and they have no more laptops. Dell, out of laptops. Will not have more laptops until the end of May. So that gives you an idea of how all of a sudden people are having to change what they're doing. There's been a run on laptops. And so what that means, and the thieves who are out there are taking advantage of this. And what we've seen are increased efforts at wire transfer fraud, social engineering frauds, which is somebody pretends to be somebody they're not to get you to send them money. The perfect example of this is, hey, I know you were planning to pay us by check, but because we're out of our office, we're not going to be able to take a check. So can you just send it to this new wire transfer instruction? And you think you're talking to the person that you're normally talking to, but either through an elaborate ruse or maybe it's a hack, you're actually communicating with somebody else. The only way to guard against this is just vigilance and training. You need to make sure your customers know that your payment terms have not changed. And if they do change, that you need to have a verbal discussion with somebody about that change. You can buy insurance for that. A cyber insurance policy and a crime insurance policies are two policies that will provide some coverage. But that's no excuse for not taking those protective measures. And so that's definitely something that if you don't have those policies for, you can talk to your friendly neighborhood insurance agent. I'm sure they will set you up.
Yes, and ASA we do have that coverage. So I'm still very diligent, but we do have it, so everybody should have it. Okay, I think that answers the questions that we're hearing. Although I'm thinking there's probably going to be another one of these talks about cybersecurity and what businesses should be looking for right now, what's going on right now. That's probably another one. So to wrap this up, in this world right now of all this bad stuff going on, I would like you to tell me something good.
You know, there are always things that are good, even in every state of crisis. But I can tell you what is, for me, very powerful is that this has really brought into focus how important it is that we have community in our lives. The absence of that has really made me appreciate it. I miss going to ASA lunches, right? And seeing people and talking to people in person. And I think that, and this will pass, we will get done with this, but I think we're going to have an appreciation for those things. And that's a good thing.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you so much for taking your time with us today. I appreciate it, or your time with me today. I appreciate it. Stay safe, wash your hands, and do all those great things. So thank you very much, Andy.
Absolutely, Brianna. Thank you.